One of the key players in this leadership contest has been Kevin Rudd's campaign manager, really, Bruce Hawker. Now, there's been a lot of criticism of Bruce Hawker from some Labor MPs over the way this has been handled, in particular his involvement, and his call yesterday for Julia Gillard not to contest the ballot based on the opinion polls showing the people want Kevin Rudd. We spoke to Communications Minister Stephen Conroy, a key backer of Julia Gillard's, this morning. Here's what he had to say about Bruce Hawker.
Bruce Hawker should get back in his box and shouldn't be seen of again. And any time he's wheeled out as an independent Labor commentator, people should just remember he called on an elected Prime Minister not to contest the ballot. It is disgraceful.
Well, Bruce Hawker joins us now. Welcome. And what do you say in response to that, Bruce Hawker?
Well, I was one of the people who actually got Julia Gillard into government. I don't think anyone argues about that. So I think I've got a right to say what I think, David, and what I think is what the Australian public thinks, and that is that if we go with Julia Gillard today, we're actually saying we're not listening to the Australian public. That's why I made those comments the other day, because at the end of the day, we do have to assume that the Australian public's right. They said that they wanted Kevin Rudd in 2007 and they got him. Then people like Stephen Conroy in the dark of night took him away from the Australian public in 2010. Now the Australian public's saying overwhelmingly we want Kevin Rudd back. And what do? They go out there and say you can't have Kevin Rudd back. We want Julia Gillard because she's the choice of the faceless men. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Who can win office for Labor? Stephen Conroy is a senator. He doesn't even have to worry about these things. If he's on top of the ticket, he'll win. That's the difference.
He's hardly a faceless man, and this is the point. You use the term faceless man, but these are ministers, these are elected politicians. You're not. You're a strategist, and this is what has upset members of caucus.
Sure. I think there are a few people who probably are upset about that. I don't think the Australian public are, though. You know, I think sometimes people want to hear from people who aren't just sitting down there in Canberra reading it as they see it. You know, I'm a strong Labor supporter, always have been. Member since 1978, longer than Stephen Conroy. But I don't want Labor to go into opposition for another 10, 15 years, which is, you know, a likely prospect. I think anybody who loves the Labor Party as I do, and I think there are a lot of people out there, believe that the right thing to do is for Julia not to stand at this election because the public don't want her. They're saying it time and time again. And while the Labor Party is out of step with public opinion, we're going to be punished in the polls.
But Bruce, Ashley Gillen here, we're still 18 months away from an election. Is it really your judgment that at this point, so far out from the next election, that Labor has no chance of turning this around?
Well, I hope we can. I really hope we can. But we've seen for the last 12 months Labor languishing in the polls. You know, we've been 29, 30, 32, 29, that sort of number. And, you know, everyone is going to pull...
primary vote, I know.
Beg yours?
Up to 35 in the news poll today. Did that surprise you that the primary vote went up today?
It was done in expectation of a Rudd win. You saw what happened there. It was as plain as a pikestaff. Julia Gillard's personal support in news poll went to the lowest it's been in 6 months, and Labor's primary vote goes up. Why? Because they expect, probably, probably with wrong, presumptions, that Labor is going to put Kevin Rudd back into office today. I don't think the public are going to be too happy about the result if, as everybody says it's going to be, that Julia Gillard wins. But, you know, that they'll have to fight really hard to make sure that they do all fall behind her and make sure that, you know, they do win the next election, because the alternative is unthinkable in Tony Abbott.
Bruce Hawker, let me ask you frankly, what's being said within Labor circles about you and your role in this? That you did well under Kevin Rudd as a lobbyist and strategist. You had the inside running. You earned a crust out of that. Not so well since Julia Gillard's been there. That is why you want Kevin Rudd back.
Well, David, can we put an end to this once and for all? I ceased being a lobbyist in May 2010, before I went to work for Kevin Rudd. I took myself off the lobbyist register. You know what that means. Everybody in the gallery knows what that means. Stephen Conroy and others know what that means. It means that I can't go and talk to politicians and receive payment from a client for doing that. I'm no longer a lobbyist. I don't even have an involvement with Hawker Britain anymore. Don't own any shares. All I do is just political campaign work. All I've wanted to do in the last week is see Labor stopping doing the unthinkable, and that's self-immolating. Yeah, and I hope that that doesn't happen today, and I hope that whoever wins, everybody pulls behind them. But, my desire in this is driven by nothing other than seeing that Labor wins the next election and wins it well, because with Tony Abbott we're going to see a return to work choices and all the other horrible things that we've been talking about for some time. I think...
I need to ask you also about the suggestion that's been made that you've been receiving money, you've been paid by Kevin Rudd or Therese Rain, or can you answer that for us as well?
Once again, an absolute lie that's been put about by people who don't like the fact that, I'm speaking what people are thinking out there, and that is we need to have Kevin Rudd back. No, I've received no payment. Many would say, and I think I'd probably agree with them, that this is not a good career move, probably a pretty poor one. But when you get to my age, David, and you've seen the party doing wonderful things in the past and great governments, and you wonder whether we're actually going to be a first-line political party in the next 10 years, I feel obliged to come out and say the things I've said. And I'm not going to apologise to Stephen Conroy or anybody else for that. I remember on the day that that we were deposed, that Kevin Rudd was taken out by all those faceless men. And I mean they're faceless because they've got the votes of people in their back pockets and they don't actually show their intentions publicly at the time. Stephen Conroy walked past me and laughed when I raised the question about the whole coup that was unfolding. Thought it was a big joke. So that was his attitude.
Bruce, I'm keen to know, you've been with Kevin Rudd over the last few days, you've been in a position to observe him closely. He's clearly under a lot of pressure. How is he coping with all of this? How has he been over the last few days? Have there been any of his famous tantrums as he's been watching his colleagues demean and attack him over the last few days? And are you convinced that he won't be plotting a second go at this?
Remarkably calm for somebody who was throwing everything on the line, I thought, and didn't see any tantrums at all. I've known Kevin Rudd for more than 20 years and I haven't seen one tantrum yet. Maybe he's on his best behaviour when he's around me, but I haven't seen it. I'm sure there are times when he gets tetchy with people, but that was another myth that was really blown out of all proportion by people that are trying to see him done. No, I think there won't be another tilt. I think he won't challenge, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I'd say this, I think there have been people in the caucus who have been quite intent on seeing both Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd fight this one out and damage each other along the way so that they could produce a third candidate. And I think that could be the sort of speculation we'll see. I think there's a number that they'd be looking at the moment. I don't think there's any particular one person, but I think that was a deliberate ploy on part of some people.
All right, Bruce Hawker, we'll leave it there. Look, thank you for joining us this morning.
Pleasure.
So, Ashley, Bruce Hawker there defending his role in this, saying that he's doing it for the sake of the ALP as a long-serving Labor member, denying claims emphatically there that he's on the payroll of Kevin Rudd or Therese Rain in any of this.
A lot of Labor MPs furious at the role that Bruce Hawker has been playing here, some of them saying he should get off the front lawn of Kevin Rudd's house and leave this to be an internal matter, that he isn't an elected MP and has no right to be talking about the faceless men.
Oh, that's right. We heard that put by Stephen Conroy very succinctly this morning.
Bluntly.
Very bluntly indeed.